Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is dig. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that this verb is used. The first way you may hear the verb dig used is to mean to break up and move dirt with a tool, could be with your hands, if it's an animal with its paws or its snout would be another way. This is the most common way for this verb to be used, but you're going to see in a moment it's a very popular phrasal verb as well. So let's take a quick look at a second usage that is very informal and many people consider to be slang. Some people will use the verb dig to mean they like, appreciate, or understand something. You're probably aware that certain words kind of become cool or popular at different points of time, and then they become less cool or popular. I think if you watch movies or read some literature from the 1960s, you might see this verb being used to mean like, appreciate, or understand. It's not as common now in 2021, but again, if you're looking at older art, you might see that meaning. You should know that dig is an irregular verb. If you want to make the progressive form of this verb, we need to double the G and then add ing. The reason we're doing this is that the verb ends, or really since it's just a three-letter verb, we have a consonant, then a vowel, then another consonant. So our rule in English is when that happens, we're going to double the ending consonant. So the progressive form is pronounced digging. To make past tense and participle forms of this verb, we need to do a complete spelling change. So we're going to change the I to a U to form dug. And again, this is the form whether it's simple past tense or present perfect or past perfect. You'll see some examples of that in just a moment. I warned you that there are a number of phrasal verbs that utilize dig. And so we're going to focus on that today. I won't do separate verb practice so that these videos don't become too long, but I'll try and point those out as we go along. So let's start by looking at the phrasal verb dig at. This means to make a critical comment about someone or something. Here's an example of this particular usage. She always digs at her boyfriend. I don't know why he dates her. So what this is suggesting is she's always making critical comments to her boyfriend, about her boyfriend, and this person is expressing kind of wonder that they continue to be in a relationship. The next phrasal verb we're going to look at is dig in. This can have a few different meanings. We're going to look at two. One meaning is to start eating. And this particular usage is extremely informal. So if you go to a formal place where there's kind of very fancy environment to have a meal, this is not a good phrasal verb to use. But if you're at home, you're with your friends, you're in some place that's more casual and relaxed, then you can certainly ask this question. Can we dig in before the food gets cold? So this particular sentence is a modal where we're asking for permission. What we're asking permission to do is permission to eat. A second way we can use dig in is to mean to make a protective shelter. This particular usage is generally focused on military, and so our troops making some kind of protective shelter when they're on the battleground. Here's an example sentence. The troops dug in for a long battle. The next phrasal verb we're going to look at is dig into. It can also have a couple different meanings. The first is, again, a very informal or slang way to say that someone is beginning to eat. And what's different about including into is what comes after that is going to be the thing you want to eat. or the thing that someone else wants to eat. So let's look at an example sentence. The kids had dug into the pizza before I could get them to wash their hands. So after this into, now we know what food they started eating. A second way to use dig into is to mean to try and discover some information. Here's an example of this. Investigators are digging into the bank statements. So they are trying to discover something from this piece of information. Now, before we continue looking at other phrasal verbs, let's do a quick verb tense review. So my first sentence here, always digs at. This is simple present. I'm talking about her habit, her routine. I mentioned that this is a modal where someone is asking for permission. Here's an example of simple past tense. This is an example of the past perfect because we have had, dug. So we're describing something that occurred before another event. And here we've got an example of present progressive. Sorry, lost my word there for a second. So here we're describing an ongoing action or something that's happening right now. Let's continue looking at some more phrasal verbs with dig. The next one, again, can have a couple different meanings. It's dig out. The first way that we could use dig out is to mean to find something you haven't used or seen for a long time. Here's an example. They'll dig out some tennis rackets and balls from the basement. So here they're going to go in search for. The people that will be using these tennis rackets in the future probably haven't played tennis in a long time. So they haven't seen these rackets or used them in quite a while. A second way we can use dig out is to mean to dig into something in order to remove something or someone. Here's an example. Rescuers dug out earthquake survivors. You might recall seeing pictures of this in newspapers after horrible events like earthquakes, where rescuers, again, have to go through material, usually it's bricks, walls of buildings, etc., that have fallen, and remove someone from all of that debris. The last phrasal verb we're going to look at today is dig up. And like many that we have discussed today, this could have a couple different meanings. One is to find something that is supposed to be a secret. Here's an example. The reporters have dug up a recording of the phone call. So this phone call maybe was supposed to be secret, or the recording of the phone call was supposed to be a secret. It has been discovered. The second way you can use the phrasal verb dig up is to mean to make a hole in the ground or to remove something from the ground. Here's another example. The dog dug up the new bush that had just been planted. So the dog removed the bush from the ground. Now, we'll do another quick verb tense review here. My first example sentence on this screen was a future sentence, simple future. So I used the contraction form for they will. This could have been someone making an offer or a promise, which is one reason to use that structure. Dug out here is simple past tense. Have dug up is present perfect. And the dog dug up is another example of simple past tense. Now, let's spend just a couple minutes talking about some words and phrases that are related to our verb dig. The first word we're going to look at today is the noun form of this word. So same spelling, same pronunciation. The noun dig could be an act or spell of digging, especially as it relates to archaeology. And archaeology might not be a term that you're used to. It is the study of ancient people, groups. Sometimes we're looking at ancient animals. And this field revolves around the action of digging, looking at old items, sometimes remains or bones, other things that have been preserved over time. Let's look at an example of this noun in a sentence. The scientists discovered ancient tools at their latest dig. So this is referring to the action of digging. So they're going into the ground, removing dirt to try and uncover something. And in this case, they found ancient tools. A second way to use the noun dig is to mean a remark that is intended to either mock or criticize. So this meaning here connects back to that phrasal verb of dig at kind of closely. So let's look at an example of this usage. His co-worker is taking digs at everyone. So saying critical things, maybe mocking many other people. The next word we'll look at is the noun digger. This is referring to either a person, an animal, or even a machine that, again, goes into the ground to remove earth or dirt. Here's an example. The grave digger's shovel struck a strange object. This sentence sounds like it's out of a story or a book, maybe something that's a bit mysterious. But we're describing a person whose job it is to dig holes for people to be buried. The last thing we're going to look at today is the phrase to dig oneself into a hole. Now, this is not a literal thing. So this is not removing dirt and then putting yourself into that space. But what it instead means is you are getting yourself or someone is getting themselves into an awkward, difficult, or uncomfortable situation. Let's look at an example to help explain this. As the child continued to lie, she dug herself into a hole. So maybe we can kind of picture this. Sometimes lying gets really difficult to remember. Well, what did I say? Who did I say it to? Right? And it sometimes leads to more questions and problems and issues. So that's what this is suggesting, that as this child continued to tell a little lie and another little lie, she made the situation even more awkward or difficult or uncomfortable. That's why we're saying she dug herself into a hole. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have